This is Eddie G's Music World for another week. It is currently the 11th of June 2018. We're going to start off today's show by just discussing a couple of upcoming shows I'm likely to go see in Montreal. I see about 5 or 6 shows a year. It used to be more like 7 or 8, or maybe now it's about 3 or 4. I don't go as much with a certain friend who doesn't have as much money as he used to, and nobody else really likes to go. So one that I might go see is with someone that likes Culture Club, and it's Culture Club is coming to Montreal. We almost went about 8 years ago or 9 years ago, but it got canceled because Boy George could not get his visa in order, since Boy George has had some legal problems in his life where he's shackled some guy in his house and wouldn't let him out, and had his way with the guy. I don't know what was going on with that deal, but he was found guilty of some infraction along those lines, and he had been. I guess he didn't go to jail. I forget the whole story. Probably got some fine or got in legal trouble, and but when it came down to coming to Canada for that show or other shows too, he was denied, so he couldn't get into the country, and then the show got canceled. But I might go see him. It's for something connected to the Starlight Foundation, which is a charity event for me that raises money for kids. So whatever money they raise over and above, I guess, what they pay for all the costs will go to the Starlight Foundation. So maybe I'll go. It's my wife. She likes that kind of music. I like it too. I'm not, I don't care if I don't go, but maybe it's only like $60. So it's not that far from where I live. So it's possible I will go to that late August 25th. And then 4 days later, Deep Purple and Judas Priest are coming to the Bell Center. I am likely to go to that. I've seen Judas Priest once and Deep Purple, I think, 2, maybe 3 times. But it's likely to be, they're probably not going to keep touring for much longer, those 2 bands. They're right around since the mid-70s for Judas Priest and the late 60s for Deep Purple, with diminishing originals in there. I'm sure there's a couple of the original players in Deep Purple that are still in the band, and for Judas Priest probably about 3. So I guess it's worth seeing those guys again, get some good seats and enjoy the show. That's coming up almost at the end of the year, at the end of the summer, August 29th. So we'll go and dig into the top 500 songs of all time according to Rolling Stone. I'm gradually getting through these things. Some of them I don't know, so if I don't know, it's not that urgent to go research these songs. If I don't know them, won't say much about them. Africa Bambaataa at number 240, and the Soul Sonic Force, Planet Rock. I do think I have heard of this type of song. It's kind of the Kraftwerk type of music. Like they have a beat from Trans-Europe Express in there. And innovative for its time. And not a lot more than I could say about that. Just that it was considered worth being put on this list by Rolling Stone. So I guess if I really cared, I'd go listen to it again and I'll probably know the song. Next is number 239, Ray Charles' song, I Got a Woman. Well, I know a lot about Ray Charles, but I don't know a lot about this song. It was really early in his career in November 1954. So for that, I just know that Ray had a movie about him. I forget what it was called. Ray, I guess. Played by Jamie Foxx, which I liked. And as far as this song goes, it's too straight where I really don't know much about the song. So I'll just pass myself to number 238. Buddy Holly and the Crickets, Every Day. That one I do know pretty good. Of course, I know that it was... he died on my birthday, February 3rd, 1959. And I was born the next year, February 3rd. And every day, I think it was covered by quite a few people. Maybe so. It's kind of a little bit not a ballad, not heavy rock, just kind of a fun little tune that he came out with back then. And that was from 1957. Get a lot of airplay, but it says it didn't make the charts. So it's bizarre that it could have been so popular but not made the charts back then. There weren't album cuts that were popular. Pretty much anything with any popularity hit the top 40 if it was popular, and this song was popular, but still didn't make it. Bizarre. Number 237, The Byrds. I'll feel a whole lot better. One of the members of the Byrds was Gene Clark. I've had a couple of back and forth comments with David Crosby of the Byrds, but I think this was after he left the Byrds, because he left the Byrds and went on to be part of Crosby, Stills, Nash, and sometimes Young. And so this one, I do have some recollection of the tune, and it was not a single either, or at least not a charted single, but got airplay nonetheless. Kind of a similar theme to the last couple of songs. Number 236 is a song called Paper Planes by Mia. Now, I know this song. They don't say, like, it's a song that got airplay back then, but you don't hear it anymore. It was from 11 years ago. And it's written by Mia and Diplo. And it's funny, Diplo has some kind of a show on Sirius I heard a commercial for. So he must be a producer, writer kind of guy. And I know she got in some trouble about 12 years ago when she spit on someone in the audience, or she said she didn't, but it was perceived that she did. She was big for a while, this Mia. I don't really know if she's still around as far as people caring about new music from her or not. But she did have a few years, and that was like one of her bigger songs, which got to number 4 back in 2007. Let's see what I have to say about this. Number 235 is The Animals. We got to get out of this place. Let's see. Oh, Barry Mann and Cynthia Well wrote it. Big brill building songwriters, wrote many hits for many people. Same with Mickey Most. He produced it. He produced quite a bit of big stars too. So this one, I wonder if it was written for the Animals, or maybe they just wrote it and shopped it around, and the Animals had the most popular one. It sounds like a pretty like downer type of song. So, and he's the perfect vocalist to sing a song like that, because he's kind of got that style where he sounds like a little bit down on himself, or down on, he's just got that very serious tone in his voice. So it definitely was a very big song for the Animals. I did see the Animals live, but he was the only original member. So it was great seeing him, but it was all younger people in his band. So it wasn't a great show, let's put it that way. Imagine, this came out in 1965. Next is Roy Orbison, another past guy from way in the past. The position this is number 234 on the list. Only the Lonely, well known, of course. Number 2 song, May of 1960. He had a slew of hits back then. A couple of them covered by the Everly Brothers. I'm not sure if this one was or not. I think it was. Yeah, Everly Brothers covered it. And it was a very heartfelt sounding song. His voice fit the mood, the style of the music perfectly. Of course, he had many other hits as well. The last thing he did of popularity was Traveling Wilburys, and now, of course, he's passed on. 230, speaking of passed on, number 233, Marvin Gaye's song Sexual Healing. Pretty sure that went in, number 3. And I remember hearing that quite a bit in 1982, like constantly, and it still Like if you listen to an adult contemporary radio station, which I rarely do, you're going to hear that song every 2 or 3 days for the rest of time. Because it's kind of got the edge to it, talking about sex, but it's also got this soft, mellow rhythm to it, which keeps it in the adult contemporary vein. So it's a perfect song for that format, and it's always going to be a big deal. He co-wrote it with somebody named Odell Brown and David Ritz. And he produced it too, which I didn't realize until recently. Let's see here. We got another Bob Dylan song. This guy loves Bob Dylan, whoever wrote this list. Number 232, Just Like a Woman. I know the song. I don't have to tell you who wrote it. Bob Dylan, of course. He writes just about everything there. Bob Johnson, I don't know, but he's the producer. And I'm not sure what the real big story is behind this song. It's just that it was one of his typical brooding songs that he's known for. Back in May 1966, it got to number 33 on the charts. You're listening to Eddie G's Music World, where I am currently counting down the top 500 songs of all time according to Rolling Stone. Moondance, a song I know quite well, Van Morrison, at number 231. Van Morrison's the kind of guy, as soon as he says he's coming to do a show, if it's Place des Arts or something that size like a theater, it sells out in less than an hour because they know he is extremely popular and he has a big following, and he doesn't tour on a great and consistent basis. So every few years he does show up. He's got to be about 70 years old by now. So I doubt if he's going to be touring much longer. He's had a bit of health issues. Maybe a little drinking has hurt him in the past. And he wrote it and produced it. That is from 1970. Not a very big chart record. It says number 92. So imagine a great classic tune like that. Came out and the AM stations barely touched it. Maybe the FM ones a little more. And it's still considered one of his classics. I do enjoy it for sure. Okay, we're going to see the next one. Here's the guy where you know the guy's name, but most people don't know his music. Muddy Waters at number 230. The song is called Mannish Boy. Let's see if he wrote it. I'm not sure, actually. There's names here, but maybe it's his real name is... The writers are listed as McKinley Morganfield, Mel London, and Elias McDaniel. So maybe he's really Morganfield is his real name. I don't know. I see. McDaniel is the real name of Bo Diddley, it says. So in other words, Bo Diddley used his real name, and Muddy Waters wasn't credited as a writer. It was the Chess Brothers and Willie Dixon, a very well-known blues act as well. And of course, Muddy Waters influenced people like Keith Richards and other people from the 60s as well. 50s too, I'm sure. Number 229, Chic with the song Good Times. I'm sure that was number one. Yes, it was. Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards were the writers, and they were also the producers. Nile Rodgers is one of these, he worked with Bowie, same with Bernard Edwards, and other Madonna too, and other famous acts he produced and wrote for. And I know one of them passed away and one of them's alive, but I'll take a guess. Let's see. I'll say Nile Rodgers is alive and Bernard Edwards is dead. And if I'm wrong, it's okay. Number 228 is a song called Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash. This is one of their crossover hits. They morphed from this punky band to a little bit more mainstream with this song. They're all credited with writing it. And trying to see if there's anything exciting to say more than that about this song. And this was definitely a crossover song that got a lot of AM airplay and FM. I'm pretty sure it's been in movies and commercials, so they've done quite well with having written a song like that. And I think, like I said in a previous broadcast, they've been sampled on other songs too. Number 227 is a song by James Taylor, Fire and Rain. I think that's kind of alludes to his stay in some mental hospital that he's been in. Because it sounds like, I know that he's been in one of those when he was younger. And I seem to remember that that's the subject of this song. He wrote it. And he had drug issues as well. That kind of helped him, not helped him, but led to him going to the psychiatric facility. So it's all a bit about his life situation, and having been in a band that broke up called The Fly Machine, who had a song called Smile a Little Smile for Me. And he's still around. I mean, he's probably in his early 70s. He came to Montreal about 4 years ago. I didn't go, but I mean, you know, I like the guy's talents, and I don't know if I want to sit there and listen to him strum a guitar for 2 hours. But definitely talented, that's for sure. Muddy Waters seems to be really big name on this list. Here he is again, number 226. Hoochie Coochie Man. Do I know this song? Well, I once made an effort to hear a couple of Muddy Waters songs, since there's so much said about him. And this is probably one of those songs, but I can honestly say I do not have a lot more to say than that, only to repeat myself, which I don't want to do, about how great an influence he was. Number 225 is Dance to the Music. It's a Sly and the Family Stone song. And he's been in the news a little bit in the last couple of years, having he's been in all kinds of lawsuits. He's had some settlements, but he's still fighting. And I know definitely this was a song I do remember quite well. It's 50 years ago that this came out. It got to number 8 on the charts, and he wrote it and he produced it. So he was a huge deal back then. People like Lenny Kravitz and Prince kind of sound like they're influenced by him. And he's not, he hasn't come out with anything lately that gets any airplay, so he's not likely to. He's probably close to 70 years old at this point. But this one was good. I think it's a song where they all were still. Sly Stone asks all the different people who are playing the instruments to chime in with their instrument. So it was innovative back then. I did enjoy it. Another Roy Orbison song clocks in at number 224, Pretty Woman. If I remember correctly, this came out at the time of the Beatles when they were just, you know, all over the charts. And he hit number 1, and yeah, this is just the beginning of Beatlemania. And he was like one of the few Americans that got a huge hit at the same time as the Beatles. I know it was covered by Van Halen. They did a great job of it. A little less hard rock than most of the Van Halen songs. And let me see, did he write it? He co-wrote it with Billy Dees. And, well, this is his biggest song of all time, I'm pretty sure, by Roy Orbison. And let's see what the next song is. 223 on this list is Lou Reed, Walk on the Wild Side. That was a pretty controversial song back in the day. I was only 12 when it came out. He wrote it. Bowie, Ronson, and Reed produced it. And this is talking about fairies and transvestites and drugs. So the fact that it got to number 16 was extremely surprising, because back in 1972, This was not the type of song that got airplay. It was just too controversial. But obviously, they managed to get it through because it was played a lot, and it was his only major hit. But then again, Lou Reed is not known for his hits. He wasn't a top 40 act. He was more an FM or alternative type of act. So for him to have that kind of a sized hit was pretty remarkable. And he came out with a lot of other music, but none of it was that as popular as this, at least on the top 40 charts. Let's see, number 222. Oh, a great song. Walk Away Renee by the Left Bank. I think I remember one of these guys killed themselves in this band. They only had 2 hits, Walk Away Renee and Pretty Ballerina. This was the nicest of the 2. The top 5 hit. The writers, I've never heard of them. Maybe I'm guessing they're in the band, but I'm not sure. Michael Brown, Bob Khalili, and Tony Sansone. Yeah, Brown was in the band, and he was only 16 when the band started. And it was written about some girl that he knew. Walk Away Renee was about that. And it's played quite a bit on oldie stations because it's got that pretty vocal and violin section and everything. Okay, we'll go to another song. Howlin' Wolf, kind of like the Muddy Waters thing. They're going for the blues big time. Number 221 is song Spoonful. Maybe that influenced the name Lovin Spoonful. I'm guessing it did. It sounds like a song that they would be interested to, it sounds like they were influenced by that act because he was very popular, and makes sense that they would take take the name of a song and make it the band name. And of course, Howlin' Wolf was like Muddy Waters, very influential blues act from way back. Oh, another blues act. Geez, they're coming in fast and furious now. Number 220, John Lee Hooker, Boom Boom. I know that was covered by the Animals. He wrote it, this guy. I've heard it by 2 or 3 different people. And this guy was kind of raw. I mean, he was a blues act. And 1962 when this came out, and got to number 60, which is shocking that John Lee Hooker even got that close to the top 40 way back then. Jolene, I know, that's a country song by Dolly Parton, and it is at number 219. Dolly, of course, has had a massive career. She has Dollywood, where it's kind of a theme park. She had 9 to 5. And of course, she's best known for writing I Will Always Love You, which was sung by Whitney Houston. I bet you she made more money out of that than probably other 3 or 4 songs put together, because that was a number 1 song for like 10 weeks. All over the world, every country. She must have made a massive fortune having written that song. This was not as big, but it was more of a country song, so she... it wasn't played a lot on top 40 radio. It was played a lot on country music, which is where she's the most popular. She's still around. She still gets the news once in a while. Well, let's see. Hey, I was mentioning Lovin Spoonful, and here they are. Number 218. Their song, Do You Believe in Magic? I know it's very well and very commercial song, very poppy, very top 40. I think Sebastian came to Montreal about 15 years ago, and I should have gone, but didn't feel like going, I guess. But it's a staple. You hear it on commercials, you hear it in movies, and you hear it on the radio. If it's an oldie station you're listening to, you're going to hear that song every few days, that's for sure. Every week or 2, or it's a staple. Here's a country music giant, Hank Williams with Your Cheatin' Heart. I do know that one. It's at number 217. Extremely, it's like a song with very little production. It just sounds like him in a room with his acoustic guitar. Doesn't sound like there were overdubs, or it's not a very sophisticated song like with a lot of studio magic. It's spared down country song. It was 1953, so there was no top 40 back then, at least not for the for the top 100, like the Billboard chart. They had charts maybe, but not the top 100. They had their kind of charts, so it's not considered having a chart position for that reason. Okay, I'm going to see what's next. Here's a guy well known, Rockin' in the Free World by Neil Young at number 216. I'm pretty sure Neil Young back then, who had a lot of bad things to say about politicians, especially right-wing ones, wouldn't be, if he talked much about Trump, he probably wouldn't say anything really great, because this is a song like sounds like it's an anti-Reagan, anti-president of the United States type of song. You know, with references to crack mothers, you know, not having food and all different type of things in there. It's a great song. And he kind of became this success in the grunge world too, where he had some music that he played with Pearl Jam and other people. And when they played this live that I saw him in 10 years ago, I was pretty impressed. He did it still very well. And let's see what is next. This is, by the way, he wrote it and co-produced it. Neil Young did. 215 is an exposition, and it's by Prince, 1999. Wrote and produced it, of course. I was amazed that he was talking about 17 years in the future when this came out, and it seems so far away. And now it's 19 years after 1999. So it came out in 82, talking about a year, 17 years later, and now we're 19 years after 1999. So it's really a bizarre thing how fast the time goes, especially with music. And we all know the song, the number 12. I would have thought that would have been a number one song, but it wasn't. And well, we know he passed away a little over 2 years ago. Another sad situation. Had his hip give him problems. I don't think he had it replaced, but he was taking so many medications for the pain that he might have gotten hooked, or maybe he didn't. But either way, it contributed to his death. And I think there's new music coming out for him in the next little bit. But even when Prince was alive, the last 5-10 years of his life, nobody was buying his new music then. So they're not likely to go running to the store. Well, actually, now that he's dead, they might buy a little more than when he was alive. Because people tend to buy songs of people that just died. There's got to be some kind of excitement about doing that. Here's a band that I've seen 3 times. They're coming back to Montreal for the comedy festival, doing a free outdoor show. The Beach Boys with their song Caroline No. And I've heard the song, but I can't quite make out I can't think of the way the song goes currently. I think it was not one of the bigger songs. Wilson and this guy, Tony Asher, wrote it. I think they knew each other for many years. They wrote together. And Brian Wilson produced it, 1966. Wow, the Beach Boys are still around, but Mike Love is the pretty much only original. Bruce Johnson is still in the band, as far as I know, and he came in to the band around 65, so 3-4 years after they formed. So he's not an original, but he was he's been there for like so many years. He's practically an original. And I will not be going to see the Beach Boys because some friend wanted to go, but then the timing of the show was not the greatest. So, hey, I've seen the Beach Boys a few times, so not seeing them again will be fine. Number 1 song is next. Question Mark and the Mysterious. 96 Tears with that great organ sound. That was at number 213 on the Rolling Stone all-time greatest songs. I think the singer's real name was Rudy Martinez. Yes. They made a big deal out of being it secretive, calling him the band Question Mark. And, well, they did have that hit. And pretty much that was it. They made this record in the living room of their manager. So it was pretty low budget to get it out and went to number 1. So it was a great debut for them. So I don't know what happened to that band. Probably did record a little bit more. But after that, like all these bands, most of them, they faded away. Another Beach Boys song on the list. Never was crazy about this one. In My Room at number 212. Kind of a bit slow, and I know it's all about this private time and everything, but I guess I like the upbeat songs by them a little better. And I know this just sounds like Brian Wilson co-wrote it, and it was about his own situation where he loved being in his room, and that was the whole point of the song. But I don't know. Was not ever blown away by this song, but it's well sung at least. Okay, we see on the list coming up next is the group Them with the song Gloria, number 211. Van Morrison was the singer in Them, and he was just on this chart a little bit earlier with Moon Dance, and this is Gloria, which was covered by the Doors. Did a cover version of it. The Shadows of Night, I think. I think they had the biggest American hit with it. And other people like Patti Smith did it. So many people, well, at least those three, covered Gloria and probably more. Good organ hook in there. 1965 is the year it came out. And who knew that, when that came out, that would become such a staple of music that so many people would cover it. But they did. And he wrote it, so great for him. I do like their version better than the Doors, which was kind of sloppy. I guess Patti Smith's version was decent. And The Shadows of Night was great. Their version was punky. So overall, I mean, this stood the test of time. If it ever comes on the radio, I always like to listen to it. Okay. We're coming up on the next song, number 210, the Everly Brothers song, Bye Bye Love. Boudleaux and Felice Bryant wrote it. And that was a number 2 song. It was about, preteen fooling around, or young love, I guess, and maybe a bit controversial. Let's Wake Up Little Susie. This one is not that controversial, but it was that was one of a slew of their songs. One of the brothers is alive, one is not, of the Everly Brothers, but they're they had a great run. They even had a song in the early 80s that was a bit of a comeback. And next is a vocal band. The Four Tops, Reach Out, I'll Be There, number 209. Lamont Dozier Holland, of course, wrote and produced it, as they did most of their songs. They were writing and writing and writing. I don't know how these guys had time to sleep. So many hits, I mean, one after the other. And, of course, Four Tops, always great vocals. Never a bad song from them as far as their hits go. We're going to the next song. It is Bill Withers, Lean on Me. Bill Withers, I think it's the second time on this chart. It was covered by another band, Soul to Soul, or That's Back to Life. He wrote and produced it. I'm trying to remember who did the cover version. It was more funkier than this one. I like this one better, but the 80s version was still good. It'll come to me who wrote it. And He had a good 4 or 5 songs. He used to manufacture airplane toilets for a job. But he was a great singer, so also songwriter. So it was a great move for him to do that instead of making the toilets, I guess. Let's see if this is a surprise. Okay, Try a Little Tenderness by Otis Redding at number 207. Okay, I know for sure this is really, really good song. And let's see, I don't think he wrote it. No, Campbell, Connolly, and Woods wrote it. Producers, Steve Cropper. He did a lot of work with Ducks Dunn and Jim Stewart. And he was one of the great vocalists of his day. Soulful. I think he passed away by flying on a plane, and the plane crashed. So those were dark days back then. But he died very young. He had quite a bit of hits for someone as young as he is, or was. And we get back to the Bob Dylan parade. Wow, this guy loves Bob Dylan, who made these lists. Number 206, Bob Dylan's Positively 4th Street. I know that one too. Of course, Dylan wrote it. I'm not sure what the real story was about back then, but it seems like a lot of his songs were wrapped up in stories about things that he went through. They meant quite a bit. And, of course, Dylan's still on the road working. There was a period where he was walking around dressed pretty poorly, and somebody thought he was a bum, the police, and they were going to arrest him. But then they realized who it was, and they didn't arrest him. 205, another Beatles song, Come Together. That was probably number 1. Yes, it was. I'm sure everyone knows who wrote it. And Martin produced it. It was redone by Aerosmith did it in the 70s. I think it was for that Sgt. Pepper movie. It was written for Timothy Leary. He was running for the governor of California. And they was another classic by them. I'm pretty sure this is the one recorded on a roof. They did an album, Let It Be, I think, where they recorded it live on a roof, and they just did some editing later on in the studio and came out with that album. And we're headed to number 204, New Order, Bizarre Love Triangle. They don't say Bizarre Love Triangle in the song, but it's got great synthesizers like all New Order songs do. And they were one of these bands where never had that song that was really, really top 40-ish. So they didn't really become a huge band in the United States, but they're probably bigger in England. Like this barely charted, but it's considered a classic anyway. And New Order, I think they've come to town a little bit here and there. I can't remember exactly when they were here, or maybe they're on their way here again. I don't know. This is a song, Beck, Loser, number 203. He's coming to Montreal. He's coming to LaValle, actually. And this, when it came out, it had that freaky video, which helped get him a lot of airplay. And he had about 5 or 6 other popular songs after that, but I wouldn't go see him. He's talented. I don't even know if he plays an instrument. He probably plays guitar. But this is, wow, 1992. This is amazing. It's already been out that long. He was kind of part of the grunge era, but I don't think he was a grunge act. He was kind of a bit alternative. And he crossed over into the more popular songs. Okay, we'll see who's next. Parliament. Number 202, the song is Flashlight. This is George Clinton's band, one of his 2 bands. And very funky, P-Funk. This is typical of their style. kind of Prince-ish a bit. And never really had songs that got played on white radio, mostly the FM, or like songs like stations that would play a lot of dance would play it, or funk. But I know for sure growing up I didn't hear it on my top 40 station. So I had to hear this a little later on, which I don't know the music that well, but I do know it decently, and I've heard once or twice. Number 201 is by Jimi Hendrix Experience, Hey Joe. And that didn't chart. This is what I expected. It was first done by the Leaves, which I remember someone gave me their 45 of the Leaves. And they did a good job too. But of course, we know that Jimi Hendrix is the more popular one. He didn't write it because I guess the guy, William Roberts, maybe he was in the Leaves, I don't know. But producer was Chaz Chandler. This is not surprising. It's not a top 40 song because, again, it's a bit too hard rock for the day back then. December 1966 came out. Elvis Presley's song at number 200, Don't Be Cruel. Pretty sure everybody knows that one. I'm sure that was number one and written by Blackwell and co-written by Presley, so he did get a co-write there. I've heard stories he didn't really write a lot, but maybe I've also, like, he played guitar, but on the records, I don't know if he really did a lot on the records as far as playing his guitar. But that's, I'm sure Elvis experts would know the answer to that. And if they want to comment and tell me which I'm right or wrong, that'll be fine. I'll be happy to read that. So this is 1956. It was only his second year about that he was coming out with records. Next was, well, we're already into the top 200 only. Number 199, the group was called the Chantels, and the song called Maybe. I always liked this song. It was very like emotional, all about breaking up, and it was a black girls band back then. I don't know who Arlene Smith is. Maybe she was in the band, maybe she wasn't. She was 16 and wrote that. So she must have been in the band. Yeah, she was. But a lot of people consider this an influential tune from, this is already 1957. Got to number 15 in the Billboard chart. If you have a chance, go listen to it. It's quite a good song. That was number 199, and we're at 198. More of a modern song for me. Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine. They all got credit for it. In the band, it was at number 198. It got to number 1. And it was Slash kind of did the riff, the music part, the guitar riff, famous one. And then Axl wrote most of the words, if not all of them. I guess the other guys throwing in their instruments into the song were credited with co-writing it too, so that worked out pretty good. And I think Slash he was just strumming away, and it caught on. They knew it would be something big, I guess, and they were right. This is over 30 years ago. Number 197, Buddy Holly singing Peggy Sue. Jerry Allison, Holly co-wrote it, and Norman Petty. Again, he was on the flight that went down on my birthday 1 year before I was born. Got to number 3. It was originally called Cindy Lou. Then Holly changed the title to Peggy Sue, because Jerry Allison's girlfriend was named Peggy Sue. Okay, who we have next? There Goes My Baby by the Drifters at number 196. The Drifters, of course, had Benny King was in that band. Let's see if he wrote it. Nelson Patterson Threadwell. No, he didn't write it. And but Benny King did have the lead vocal. He sang on it. And this is back in May of 1959 that it was released. Got to number 2, almost number 1, but they had so many hits, the Drifters. This is one of like 12 of them. Excuse me, another song, popular tune, was 195 position. Glenn Campbell, who just passed away of Alzheimer's, with his song Wichita Lineman. 1968, I do remember hearing this quite a bit. Written by Jimmy Webb. He was known for all his strings that he played, symphonic sound that he had. He added to the records. And Wichita Lineman was kind of like, by the time I get to Phoenix, story songs. Sounds like a very sad situation he's going through. But I like Glenn Campbell's voice. He contributed quite a bit to music over the years. Sadly, he passed away not that long ago. Speaking of passing away, number 194, Amy Winehouse with Rehab. Okay, I mean, I like this song. So much was made of this girl. Like, they acted like she was the next big superstar to come. And I didn't feel like she was so brilliant, but maybe so much of this was about the fact that she died young. It helps you get more popular when you die, when you're in your careers in its infancy, like it was with her. I think she had drug issues, which she died from. And like I say, maybe the people who know more about music were right that she was the next big thing, or maybe they were wrong. I don't know. She had another couple of songs, but this is the biggest one for sure. Speaking of big songs, number 193, Lynyrd Skynyrd's song Freebird. I saw Lynyrd Skynyrd with not a lot of originals in the band. And this, of course, was one of these 8 or 9 minute songs that got to number 19. It was a hit live and it was a hit studio. I like kind of both. And, of course, the famous guitar solo. We all know it. And Ronnie Van Sant and Alan Collins wrote it. And of course, because it's so popular on FM that it got so high in the chart, it's well deserving. But I've heard it quite a bit over the years. But still, it's a classic. It's like the Southern Stairway to Heaven kind of thing. They had a few other hits. But this song and Sweet Home Alabama were their most popular songs they've ever had. Here's another song by Bob Dylan. This one I know very well, Knocking on Heaven's Door, number 192. Beautiful song, covered well by Guns N' Roses too. And Dylan wrote it, of course. It's about a dying sheriff who wants to stop using his guns. Okay, I'll say it was a great song. Number 191, Bee Gees, Staying Alive. Again, maybe a little overplayed, maybe, not just maybe, definitely. Big in the disco era, came off the Saturday Night Fever classic album. This was the biggest song from there. And I don't know, much more than that to say. It's so well known. And number 1 song. Okay, the song next on the list, another overplayed song by AC/DC, number 190, Back in Black. And of course, this was came out right after Bon Scott passed away. I think it was written, and there was a version of Bon Scott singing it, even though Brian Johnson was the singer on it, the hit version. I think I heard a demo by Bon Scott, like he was going to sing it. And it was done in a demo form, but it never became the release with Bon Scott. And Brian Johnson was in the band for many years, and now he's no longer in the band, given his walking papers because he lost his ability to sing as well. His hearing was gone too. So I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to either get Axl Rose back in there or get someone else because they don't like to stop. These guys have been around forever. Aretha Franklin is number 189. I never loved a man the way I love you. Never heard of this guy. Ronnie Shannon wrote it. I know the song quite well. A very moody song, sort of not upbeat, sort of bluesy. And Aretha's still around, but this is she's getting very old. I don't think you'll hear too many shows coming up for her or new records or anything. And number 188, Creedence Clearwater Revival. This is when they were pumping out all these hits one after the other in a very short period of time. And this one was Who'll Stop the Rain. And Fogerty keeps touring. He never stops, always working. Must have to make up for some lost time that he couldn't record or he wasn't having hit records where there were lean years. So he's got some kids to support. So he's always working, always out there touring. I'm sure he's coming back to Montreal in the next few months too. Number 187, Why Am I Surprised? Desolation Row, Bob Dylan. And yeah, he wrote it. I think it was like a 15-minute song on one side of the album, like the whole side of the album, if I remember correctly. He wrote it in the back of a cab. 11 minutes long. That's how long the song was. He's kind of an acoustic version of this song. And kind of a bit of a down type of song, you know, not upbeat. That's typical of Bob Dylan's style, I guess. But it was not a single because it's too long, and I'm sure he didn't want to turn. It wasn't the kind of song that got top 40 airplay or whatever. And the height of British invasion, the Beatles had the song Please Please Me. It's at number 186. Number 3. Well, they were probably held out from number 1 by their own song because they were cleaning up on the charts back then. And it was a fast song, and it was originally going to be slowed down, but they sped it up a bit. And I've heard it so many times. Very commercial song, but really well done. Typical of what they were doing back then. B.B. King had only one really, really, really big song as far as crossing over to the charts, and it was The Thrill Is Gone. Number 185. And I'm trying to see, what was the name? How did he get that name? B.B. It could have been Blues Boy. I think that's what the B.B. started standing for. And he has recently passed away in the last 5 years. And he's survived on being a very big act in the blues world. Okay, the next song on this list is again by the Drifters, number 184, and they had a song, Save the Last Dance for Me. Doc Pumis and Mort Schumann wrote this, and it was a ballad, a nice, pretty song. Benny King was in this band, maybe not at this recording because he came. I'm not sure when he became part of the group. But if you hear it, it's a pretty ballad and one of maybe 15 songs that they had that were hits. Next band is Booker T and the MGs with their song Green Onions. And this is at number 183. It's an instrumental song with Booker T. Jones, Steve Cropper, Louis Steinberg, and Al Jackson. You hear it a lot on the radio back then, 1962. And it's all mainly organ playing, that type of song. No vocals at all. Okay, next is number 182, and the band is the Outcast. Hey, yeah. It's funny, the Outcast was supposed to be this massive band. They had a couple of big songs. They had a movie about them and all this hoopla about them. They were going to be the next greatest thing, Andre 3000. But I don't know, maybe he's still a very big part of the music industry. I don't know. But you don't hear much, if anything, about the Outcast anymore. Like I say, individually, they may have still done quite a bit of things because some of these guys become big-time producers. So it's possible that they're still out there doing music, but not as the band Andre 3000. Joy Division, Love Will Tear Us Apart, back in the, that was number 181. And I think Joy Division is New Order. There's some kind of connection. I think they changed their name, and became New Order after Ian Curtis passed away. And this is a song I have heard quite a bit on the radio in the last few years too. Number 180 is Big Star, September Girls. I remember looking up Big Star just because I knew that Alex Chilton was in the Box Tops, was in Big Star. So I've heard a couple of their songs, but they didn't stick in my mind because they never got any airplay in any way. So I never heard them at all growing up. So the only way I could ever hear them was to go looking for them on YouTube or something, which I did. Another act that passed away recently, Tom Petty with his song Free Fallin', number 179. He just passed away a little less than a year ago. I think it was October 2017. Produced by Jeff Lynne from ELO. This was big in 1989. I remember going to Florida and hearing it on the radio all the time. And of course, Petty had like 25 hits or 20 to 25 songs that are well known. And this was maybe overplayed a little bit, but again, not really the fault of the act. When songs are so good, they play them all the time. Number 178 is the Beach Boys with their song Don't Worry Baby. Let's see who wrote it. Brian Wilson and Roger Christian. It was beautifully done vocally. And got to number 24, so not as big as most of their songs back then. This is one of many hits that they had, of course. And now we're on to I Fought the Law by the Bobby Fuller 4, number 177 of all time. And classic song, about people robbing banks and all this stuff, always a bit of outlaw romanticism. And don't think they had any other hits after that. They pretty much went into obscurity. He did co-write it, so maybe that made him a lot of money. Not sure. But I can't think of another song by them, although I did once hear one by looking for it, looking to see what else they did. Coming towards the end of the top 500 for this show, number 176 was the Rolling Stones' Paint It Black. That was a number one song. And that was played quite a bit, part of the British invasion, but kind of towards the end of the British invasion, 1966. Wow, number one song from way back then. But I like that it had sitar in it. Made it a bit unique. It wasn't had like klezmer flavored organ. And innovative, very innovative song. They were trying to keep up with the Beatles back then. And the last song for this show is number 175. And it's by the Sex Pistols, God Save the Queen. I remember hearing about this song in 1977, and I said, wow, how is this going to make it in the United States? And of course, it was not considered a major hit. It was an FM song more than anything because it was a bit too screaming and crazy and like a bit out of control type of music. But the Sex Pistols were made famous by it nonetheless. And of course, Johnny Rotten went back to his original name, John Lydon, and informed the band Public Image Limited. So thank you very much for another phenomenal Eddie G's Music World show. And I am at number 175. We're gonna have to start thinking of new show ideas because we're gonna come to the end of this segment of counting down the top 500. So that's it for June 11th, 2018 for Eddie G's Music World, and I'll be back next time. Thank you.